Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who were here first thing this morning will know that I moderated the first panel. It's what we call in UK retail 2 for 1, a twofer. When I was in India with the then UK minister a few years ago, it was a few years ago, I have to say, we were scheduled to meet with the Minister of the State, the Chief Minister of the State, for breakfast. I'm talking maybe mid-90s, mid-1990s. And British ministers on travel, hosted by the British High Commissioner, very old school, and we were in the waiting room, and the British High Commissioner could see that I was there with this minister, and he was wondering, what's this tech guy doing at a briefing with the Chief Minister of India and a British minister? Why have we brought a tech guy along, for goodness sake? And we went into breakfast with the Chief Minister, and the Chief Minister had lined up a bunch of young digital entrepreneurs, and all he wanted to talk about was how digital could help the people in his villages. And I think the High Commissioner didn't speak a word throughout the whole of the breakfast. And it really brought home to me, you know, even 15, 20 years ago, that all around the world, people are looking for opportunities to make societal and economic progress through digital. So it's great that that's going to be the topic of our discussion for the next half an hour this afternoon. And I have with me 3 panelists to get the conversation going. And I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you will join in this discussion this afternoon as well. Philipp Rösler, I'm sure, is known to many of you as the former economics minister of the federal government of Germany. Today is on the board of the World Economic Forum, known mostly, I guess, for the brand of Davos, the Davos meeting every January, but is an organization that works on these matters throughout the year, not just once for a skiing holiday in January. Helen Arnold is from SAP. She's also a member there of the Global Managing Board. And as you know, SAP, a global organization based here in Germany, working with its customers on innovation and the use of digital right across the globe. And then on my far right, Rodin from Innovation Norway. He's the Chief Digital Officer. That's a job title you hear more and more these days. I think 5 years ago, I don't think there were any Chief Digital Officers. But you may not know, I certainly didn't, that Innovation Norway has 50 offices in 35 countries around the world. And I guess their job is helping innovative Norwegian companies succeed globally. So very much you have that experience of helping people succeed globally. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Digital, global, what could be better? Would you like to kick us off, Philipp?
Yes, thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. So you mentioned already Davos. But the World Economic Forum is an international organization for public-private cooperation. And internationally, so allow me to share 3 observations regarding the digital agenda. So the first observation is that the digital economy is in all the different regions in the world, of course, the big bet. Be it in Latin America, Brazil, Mexico, North America, of course, Silicon Valley, but as well Canada, Ontario, wherever. We have it in Africa, Middle East, Dubai. We have it for sure here in Europe, London, Paris, Berlin, in all respect. Russia, they have started recently a new initiative, Digital Russia. And of course in Asia like India, Telenaga, China, or East Asia. So first observation, everything is focusing on digital. The second observation is, of course, the role model is always Silicon Valley, and they try to copy the entire ecosystem, which means, of course, they are convinced they have the same creative guys, creative people who would like to be in the entrepreneurial sector. They have entrepreneurial spirit. Second, they need an excellent academic basis, such as Stanford or other universities like MIT or Harvard, and so forth. Third, they need, for sure, in addition to this, market access, and particularly the capital VCs. And both observations are not really new. So we all know that something is going on, and that more or less Silicon Valley is the role model. Maybe the third observation is interesting for you and worthwhile to discuss today. And the third observation is that more or less, it's always a public-private approach if you will have successful additional startup hubs, such as New York, for example, or even here in Europe, Middle East, or Asia. Look, for example, at New York. So they are quite successful. Accenture made recently a study about this, and they said, look, the best place for startups is not anymore Silicon Valley, but New York. I cannot judge it, but we know that in the last decades, the policymakers have been in close touch with the entire business community in New York. They wanted to have really a public-private exchange. They want to learn from each other in order to create the right ecosystem for the startup business community in New York. And today, 10 years later, they are quite successful, 300,000 jobs. They, by the way, have a chief digital officer. So I think it makes a lot of sense to put all this together and to have always this public-private cooperation. And the conclusion of these three observations is that you can be successful in this public-private cooperation, and I was before here as a liberal, so a real liberal, so I'm of course in favor of the private activities, and it's not that we say cooperation means top-down from the government to the business sector, but on the same level playing field, it makes a lot of sense. And so please, challenge your policymakers. Now it's easier for me to mention this. Ask them, claim them to have the right legal framework in order to really create this kind of startup community everywhere in the world, particularly in Germany, allow me this, and here in Berlin.
Thank you very much. Great place to start there. You didn't mention innovation culture specifically, but I think, Helen, that's something you've observed, differences in your customer set around the world. Innovation culture, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, welcome everyone here. And that is so true. What makes us win in the digitalization, of course, is only one thing, is innovation leadership. And innovation requires many, many different aspects, as you mentioned as well. But my true belief is innovation is with everyone. Today, when you look into how can you drive entrepreneurship, and what does it mean for a company like SAP? And I have the most exciting job, of course, because I am SAP CIO. So we have the tech company, we have innovation culture already within, of course, makes us successful already for 43 years. Number one in application and business for enterprises. And I remember 5 years ago, SAP number one in application and also for analytics. Good business model, but we knew the market is changing. We came up with the new technology, HANA in memory, and we knew that the businesses are looking at SAP as the tech giant to move them into the new digital era. And we really completely changed. We gave ourselves a big vision, and a mission in terms of being that cloud number one player, making sure that everyone can embrace the new opportunities. And that is not an easy part to do, because yes, being a tech giant is also, well, how are you going to do and foster an innovation culture? How are you going to make sure that entrepreneurship is part of your every fiber in your own organization? And this is something where you see that entrepreneurship, also within a big tanker like SAP is, we foster this little speedboats to make sure that we have that kind of startup setup really in our culture. So programs that everyone, if you have a good idea at SAP, you come up with, you pitch in front of a jury, and then you get the time, the resources, the freedom to do that innovation. And I think entrepreneurship comes with different phases. It's changing across different countries. Also, it's very young. Also, more and more female orientation in there, which is great. And I think that we can really change the world now. Technology is now hinderer any longer. It's really at our hands. It's only about how you're going to grab the potential and make sure we have the strategy that is relevant for your business. And so I'm really glad to see the chief digital officers as a role, because this means that you look into what the strategy, give yourself a digital strategy. And I think this is what is really required to be successful.
Absolutely. And you're a public organisation, aren't you, Rodin? The public agency. How does this public-private partnership work from your perspective? Is it important?
I think it's very interesting listening to this, and culture is so many things. And we have our kind of Nordic module, social democracy, and we have this tradition of very flat structures, very open transparency, and a lot of register technology, heavy on that. People are putting into registers for many, many years. And we see now that, like for example, tax reports are fully automated. Just one click finished in an SMS, to be honest. And we see that other things like financial reports from companies are public. And this kind of is an extremely good starting point for the new gold, which is information. And I really think, if you look at this in a broader picture, if we can open up more and share more information, that would be an extremely good starting point to start to accelerate innovation. Give me some examples from Norway. It's an old story, but it kind of connects to what you talk about regulations into an example from the oil industry in Norway. We had a lot of oil, but we wasn't able to pump it up, so we needed help. And but we have very high levels of regulations in terms of health security, much higher than the rest of the oil world then. But the Norwegian government didn't give in, so they have to kind of comply with the rules and still come and pump oil. After 10 years, the subcontractors in Norway are now the market leaders around the world, helping other companies to pump oil on that level of security and health. So if regulations are for good, they can also help and really give you a competitive advantage. Another aspect of it is one of our cancer hospitals. They registered data for a long time. And suddenly, we have one of the biggest records of cancer data in the world. And we get scientists from all over the world flying in, and companies are popping up around it. And I think this is a nice way to see how, what you said, you can play together with the public and private, and we can get a win-win situation. I think there's a lot of opportunities here that is up for free, and maybe we should share more?
Yeah.
Can that be a way?
Let's pick up on that sharing more. One of the things that we were talking about earlier is the opportunity for innovation to arise around the world from the use of open data, or for people putting data out there. Oh, you're just going to get some re-engineering done here at Rodin. So, I don't know, Philipp, do you think that there is a role that the government might have is to make its data available, you put that on the table as an asset and drive innovation in that way? And do you see different attitudes towards that around the world?
Of course. So look at the question of shared economy. I'm convinced that the people are far beyond the politicians, because we have a discussion, for example, a small example in terms of shared economy. Look at Uber, particularly here in Berlin. So there was one simple example for shared economy, quite successful, benefiting to the people. But then we have had, at the same time, the politicians, they have no idea what does it mean, and they said, look, maybe it's a threat to our existing industry, like the taxi industry. We both need the taxi industry, so we must be careful, because we have to go to the airport and to the train later on. Okay. But the consequence is they have no understanding what does it mean, this new trend regarding shared economy, and the simple way they went was to forbid Uber Pop and other opportunities. And that shows that it's quite important to have really this public-private exchange, not to have a simple lobbying, but to have really an exchange and an understanding. So that is, I think, a good example that we need this public-private cooperation.
Yeah, I might just stay on this subject and go to Rodin, because I think in Norway you've put a lot of data out there that results from this sort of thing for other people to use and solve societal problems, indeed create businesses. Is that something that you see in different parts of the world happening?
I just came back a few weeks ago from a smart city conference in Barcelona. And I was so amazed when I learned that 30% of the traffic in the city was really cars looking for places to park.
So let's just make sure 30% of the traffic in the city Was people just driving around looking for a parking space?
Looking
Sounds
for a
very
place.
like Brussels.
And the government wasn't able to solve this themselves. But then they started to share the data about traffic and parking. And suddenly startups can jump in and make apps for it and get help to solve the problem with traffic in the cities. And I was, wow, that was fantastic. Applause to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Fantastic way of going forward.
And do you think, I mean, sticking to our sort of global theme, I mean, do you see different attitudes? Do you see governments in different parts of the world? I tell you what I'm thinking of here. I remember, again, years ago, government ministers, the UK government ministers, would come back from trips to, I don't know, Malaysia or Korea or Singapore, and they go, oh, God, we've got to do that. And because they identified just different attitudes towards innovation, towards models of digital progress. I mean, maybe, Helen, I mean, do you see these different cultures around the world, different approaches?
Yeah, so first of all, we have everything at our hands. So technology is no barrier. We have so much data. And the data is not used. I mean, that is for sure. What are the business scenarios? You mentioned one that is unbelievable. Think about, healthcare. Think about, I think 30% of the data that is really created is in the healthcare area. What are we going to do out of it? So is this intelligence with cancer treatments, etc.? So we really have an opportunity to make the world better by grabbing the data, making sure we have the right models. But at the other hand side, why it is not going faster? I'm very impatient. I'm looking into, hey, we have all the technology, because what we need is responsive regulations. We need standards that are put in place, and it comes also with security on the one hand side, was it privacy regulations, now governments. I hope that Europe will find a really great regulation in one market, data market, that we can exploit to run a better world going forward. Smart logistics, smart cities, healthcare, so much potential. But we need, once again, many players coming together and having that sense that is not everything is forbidden, what is not really physically allowed. Looking into maybe the other way around. What is the opportunities? Please look into what regulation needs to get in place, what standards do we need, but also look into what does it mean on a global economy which is networked. It's not only shared. We are looking into networks of businesses. We have business networks, like 2 million companies are connecting to each other. Think about the Ubers of the world, buyer and seller side, just very easily pulling together and making sure there's a great business model running out of it. And this is what afterwards makes our world really run better, and we have such a tremendous, exciting time to change many things here.
Rodin, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I would just like to add to that, because I also challenged with regulations on data protection is one of my biggest headaches. But I had some lawyers and some information specialists in my company look into it. We're an old company, 100 years old, have all the traditional metrics of an old company. And what data are really dangerous to share? It was under 10%. So why did we protect everything like the kind of dangerous data? Why can't you be a bit more flexible, maybe open up the 80%, which should be open, and find another solution for the 20%, and we get a lot of business models up and running with that 80%.
Yeah. Let's just move to another pick up something you said, Philipp, that everyone's trying to copy the Silicon Valley ecosystem, and you described the links between businesses and universities. I think an honest assessment would be we're not doing that as well in Europe. I mean, I can say that being involved partly with a British university, and that we think is quite good at being engaged, but it doesn't come close. I mean, what do you think about the ecosystems that we create here in Europe compared to other parts of the world, and what lessons could we learn to help us prosper from those ecosystems?
I would say they are not that bad, first. Of course, they have not the excellent reputation we see in Silicon Valley with Stanford, but we know that all the German universities and institutions try really to have the link between entrepreneurial spirit on the one hand and academic scientific knowledge and insights on the other hand. So they really try to foster the entrepreneurial spirit. They're always talking about not only the scientific achievements, but as well, what does it mean to create out of these achievements, out of these insights, some kind of business models? And then to even support their students to create their own business, their own small startup in the university, literally in the building of the university, for example, here in Berlin. So I think we're on a good way. Of course, we're not that fast. And at the same time, you need not only the university and the entrepreneurial spirit, you need as well the capital in order to start the companies, but even to finance their growth, which is a challenge as well.
And how do you think that compares here in Europe today compared to surrounding Silicon Valley?
So regarding the last 5 years, I think even here we can be proud as well, because many of the VCs
You're not still
in
a
Silicon
minister,
Valley.
are you?
No,
Okay,
it's not my achievement, unfortunately, because in the last 5 years, So I've seen that, of course, the people here in Germany or Europe, London as well, or Paris is quite successful as of now, so that they are as creative as the people in the Silicon Valley. They have good ideas and not only cheap copycats. So I think we can see even some investments from the major funds out of Silicon Valley here in Berlin, London, or Paris.
Does that ring true with you, Helen?
Oh, I'm very passionate about the topic, right? Because first of all, what I really truly believe is, you know, when you would like to shape digital future, you need to have a clear understanding on technology. So I am a mother of 2 children, okay? And I can tell you, sometimes I have the feeling like the last digital free resort in Germany are schools. How do we teach our children, our kids, so programming, looking into working with the technology state of the art? And I think that is essential. And this is what I see we completely miss out. It's not about the as is of now, what I see in the entrepreneurial stuff, startups. Yes, I see Berlin is an absolutely amazing place. So you see much more also investments going to Berlin. But we need to think about how we're going to foster that from an educational point of view. Then second is, you know, is about a culture. Again, education-wise. Do I have a culture where I say you're failure, you're risk taker, you have an innovation, you are hungry, you are eager, you would like to push forward? And do you have a culture saying, okay, if this is failing, it's failing, and then you move on to the next? That is not yet the case. I mean, this is something when, you know, I travel the world in my function. I see many also different cultures, how how you approach with these kind of failure, how you're gonna be more risk-taking. Then second, I also see many times that, we have great successes that we can build on. Okay, but when I travel the world and I say, my company is SAP, I'm very proud to work for the company, people say, so what is SAP? Just give me a little bit of a hint. And I can tell you, every single company, every single industry, just in their mindset, need to have a clear understanding that is push the button, reset, down to zero, and understand what brings you in the economic scenarios for the next 5 years. This is coming to having a digital strategy and making sure that you are really clearly leading that wave of innovation. And this is what I'm not really seeing. When when you see how you're gonna use the internet, social media, your daily decisions you're taking are completely different because of the internet, because of the social media. And there is, if you apply that concept to the businesses we're doing, what does that mean? How are we gonna do business interacting together across industries, many players coming onto a community, onto a network that we were not expecting. We have, I call them the little dangerous babies. You have no clue. It's not the established businesses that per se, it's the little speedboats that are coming. Yeah. And it's not it's the fast fish is really eating the slow fish. It's not the big is eating the small one. Yeah. And that's the agility and speed. And this is coming, the inner heart is that culture, is that mindset, how you're gonna allow that to happen. And it starts with our kids.
Let me see if there's anybody who wants to come in with any points or questions. It's quite difficult to see. You all look vaguely lilac-coloured from here, but if there's anyone who wants to come in, just step up to the microphone. I saw last week, I was talking to a guy in the Netherlands who was so frustrated with the standard schooling system that with other parents, which apparently is something you can do in the Netherlands, you can establish your own school within the system. And so he'd established with another group, an entirely digital school. And so they'd started from scratch. And he showed a video of it, and it really was a fantastic example of, you know, not just bolting digital on with a few smart whiteboards or throwing a few laptops, not literally, but throwing a few laptops at the children, but totally starting from scratch, you know, and the results were absolutely amazing. So who'd like to come in with some questions or points, you know, at this stage? This is one at the back. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yep, we get you.
My name is Axel Haas. I'm representing a German company from Munich called Retarus. We're happy to be a partner worldwide with this wonderful company, SAP. Yeah, good. So I have a question to Mrs. Arnold. Well, it is clear SAP is a company that is leading in their industry worldwide. And there was the thesis of John Higgins that everybody's trying to copy Silicon Valley. This is not true with SAP. They never copied. They went their own way. And my question to you, Ms. Arnold, is do you think, or what would be necessary for a second SAP coming out of Germany?
I'd just like to say it was your former minister who made that assertion rather than me, but anyway.
My former minister.
Please answer the question.
I think it's customer relationship management now, so it's on you.
So first of all, thank you that you being a customer of ours. As what I can say is, first of all, when you look into a software company, it's never ever about a Me Too strategy. It's never ever only about incremental improvements. It's always looking into what are the next groundbreaking innovations that we can enable. And we have first line, I see my dearest colleague who is running that innovation entrepreneurial spiritship within SAP. So, Herr Müller, maybe you stand up and make yourself a little bit visible. And I would encourage really everyone to run similar programs, regardless of if you're a large-scale enterprise, you are this big tanker, you have the bureaucratic processes in place. There are ways how you're going to foster your innovations culture within your company. And that is something what makes us successful and what will make every individual enterprise successful. The second is, and it's a very simple message I would like to cry out to everyone here, is we need to walk and chew gum at the same time. Meaning you look into, wow, what makes me successful today? I need to even get better in what I'm doing right now, but allowing at the same time the new business models to happen and to enable those. And this is what you really need to balance out, and that's why it pains me when I read through researchers that very few businesses today having a systematic approach, what does digitalization really mean to their own business? And to their own business, not within the four walls, looking into a networked economy. There are much more players that are out there that you connect, and you have different business models, how you're going to tap those business models. And we just talked about data. We see so much data-driven new business models. And then I have to ask, sorry for your former function, to our government to make sure that we have that regulations in place that are really looking into balancing out what is the potential that we are tapping into and what is the real requirement for regulation.
So, Rodin, we were talking earlier about some attributes that Helen was just describing in some of the companies that you take out into the wider world. You know, this international aspect. I mean, tell us about how that plays out.
What we can see is kind of a thing we don't want to happen, because we have fantastic smart people working with companies like SAP and others, and things start to happen. And suddenly the regulation problems turns up to be a kind of a showstopper. Or we're not able to do something about them faster. So they go out, they grow, make the money, and they come back and compete. But then they don't have our kind of take on this, because they have low cost labor, other regulations, and they compete back, and we are not able to control it. And we will, of course, love those companies to be in Norway and do it from Norway or Germany or other countries, and not have to go away to realize their dreams and they make it out there.
I mean, I think you could almost say that to be successful, these companies have to have the attributes that Helen described sort of built in from the very start. They have to have an eye to this use of digital scalability, international ambitions. I mean, could you help with all these?
Yeah, and
you help a lot of companies.
We have a lot of companies, and we are using the phrase "born global," and we also use the phrases "power couples." For we see that if you have a demanding customer and small startups, they can really move fast. You get really good solutions. And that is really a strong way to finding the right business model quite early. So it's kind of a dialect of the fail fast thinking in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. And just to build on what you said, and that is very interesting, I was reading a research from the US Department of Labor saying 65% of our children, schools children, will be employed in functions or jobs that are not even existing right now. This just as an indicator how much the disruption will be, and we need to really embrace that as an opportunity and making sure we are really staying ahead of the wave and making sure that we shape that digital economy the way we would like to see it. We are just at a starting point. We have everything still that will be defined and redefined from a business point of view, reimagine all your business processes, your business models, up to the entire society and the global space. So
We've got 60 seconds for a quick question and a quick response from everyone. So.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to repeat, Thorsten Oeke from Berlin, I just wanted to repeat the question I asked this morning to all of you as Industry 4.0 is so important. Where would you all go to meet the most relevant startups for Industry 4.0 worldwide?
And let's broaden that question, include the answer to that, but say, where would you go to learn about everything to do with exploiting digital for Europe's benefit, societal, economic? So, where would you go?
So even that I'm in the risk that I'm again called as biased, but of course I would go first to Germany and more to the point maybe to Karlsruhe, because they have excellent universities we talked about in terms of our industrial basis on the one hand, but at the same time the digital industry and economy on the other hand. And the Industry 4.0 is a question of merging both. And I think the biggest opportunity is to have once another company such as SAP with the same size, but not the big data sector industry, but maybe Industry 4.0. I think Germany is the best place on earth.
Excellent answer. And that's from a World Economic Forum perspective
and
too.
without
so
any campaign as of now.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Helen, where would you go?
So first of all, it's an industry revolution, and it's tapping each individual industry around the globe. So of course, I would look within SAP because we kind of enable these new technologies and making sure that all businesses are able to embrace these opportunities. There is specifically in Germany, of course, a huge knowledge base when it comes to engineering. So of course, for particular industries, it's absolutely the right place. But it's depending, one more time, it's really depending, and opportunities across the globe. And we see, by the way, the unicorns. There's one unicorn in Europe, only one, Spotify. I really would like to see a lot more in the European arena. And this is, we have the potential, and it's what is the kind of, coming back, maybe the environment, the macro environment we need to have these ideas grown into huge, giant economies going forward.
And Rodin, final word from you, and don't say Norway. I'll be very disappointed. No, you can if you want. You can if you want.
I have this bad habit of always contacting my kind of usual suspects where I know I get the right answer. And I know also that the population and opportunity are really growing more where I not live, like Asia and Africa. So I will definitely look into all my contacts and I will go somewhere else to find new ways of thinking, new ways of cultures, new ways of approaching old problems to see what are all the gold out there which I'm not aware of.
Very good. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll say thank you very much to our panelists for entertaining us for the last 40 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go.